The Shroud of Turin remains one of history's most profound and polarizing artifacts. It is a long, rectangular linen cloth, measuring approximately 4.4 by 1.1 meters. Imprinted upon its surface is the faint, sepia-toned image of a man. This figure appears to have suffered the trauma of crucifixion, Anui, Kanapun. For millions of believers, this is the authentic burial shroud of Jesus of Nazareth. For skeptics, it represents a masterful and enduring medieval hoax. The Enigma weaves together threads of faith, science, and historical detective work. Its known history does not begin in ancient Jerusalem, but in 14th century France, Turkey. Around the year 1354, a French knight named Geoffroy de Charny is its first recorded owner. He arranged for the public exhibition of the shroud in a small church in Lyre, The exhibition immediately sparked controversy and drew crowds of pilgrims. The local bishop, Pierre d'Arcy, was deeply skeptical of its authenticity. In 1389, he wrote a detailed memorandum to Pope Clement XVII. In this letter, he declared the shroud to be a cunningly painted forgery. He even claimed that a local artist had confessed to creating the image. The Pope, in response, did not affirm its authenticity. He allowed its display, but only as a representation of the true shroud. This papal ruling cast a long shadow of doubt from its earliest days. In 1453, the shroud passed from the de Charny family to the prestigious House of Savoy. The Savoys housed the relic in their chapel in Chambéry, France, Pays. A disastrous fire broke out in the chapel in the year 1532. The silver casket containing the shroud was exposed to extreme heat. A drop of molten silver burned through the folded layers of the cloth. This created a series of symmetrical scorch marks and holes that are visible today. Poor Clare nuns were tasked with repairing the significant damage. They stitched patches over the holes and added a reinforcing backing cloth. In 1578, the House of Savoy moved its capital to Turin, Italy. The shroud was transferred with them and has remained in Turin ever since. It is housed within the cathedral, protected in a climate-controlled case. In 1983, Umberto II, the last king of Italy, bequeathed the shroud to the Holy See. The history of the cloth before the 14th century is purely speculative. Some researchers propose a link to the legendary image of Edessa.I. This was a cloth bearing the face of Jesus, venerated in the Byzantine Empire. Proponents suggest the shroud, folded to show only the face, was this very image. The image of Edessa was taken to Constantinople in 944. It disappeared after the city was sacked by Crusaders in 1204. This timeline leaves a convenient 150-year gap before its appearance in France. Other theories connect it to the Knights Templar, but evidence is lacking. The modern era of the shroud began with a photograph in 1898. Amateur photographer Secondo Pia was stunned by what his camera revealed. When he developed the photographic plate, the image was transformed. The faint image on the cloth became a clear, detailed positive image in the negative. This suggested the image on the shroud itself possessed negative-like properties. This discovery reignited intense public and scientific interest in the artifact. It seemed impossible for a medieval forger to have created such an effect. How could an artist from that era understand or replicate photographic negatives? The 20th century brought more rigorous scientific examination. In 1978, the Shroud of Turin Research Project, STURP, was formed. This team of American scientists conducted days of non-destructive testing. They used spectroscopy, infrared analysis, and X-ray fluorescence. Their conclusion was that the image was not the product of paint or dye. They found no evidence of brushstrokes or artistic application. The image's color was due to a dehydrated or oxidized layer on the linen fibers themselves. The STIRP team also concluded the reddish stains were consistent with real human blood. However, this finding was later contested by microscopist Walter Macron. Macron asserted the blood was merely a mixture of red ochre and vermilion pigments. His conclusions were, in turn, disputed by other members of the STIRP team. The most pivotal moment in the Shroud's scientific history came in 1988. 3 independent laboratories were given small samples of the Shroud for radiocarbon dating. The labs were located in Oxford, Zurich, and Arizona. The results from all 3 laboratories were in remarkable agreement. They dated the linen's origin to a period between 1260 and 1390 AD. This medieval date range aligned perfectly with the Shroud's first historical appearance. For many, this was definitive proof that the Shroud was a medieval creation. This, it seemed, was finally closed. But defenders of the Shroud's authenticity quickly raised objections. They questioned the validity of the sample that was taken for the test. The sample came from a corner of the cloth that was known to be handled frequently. It was also an area that had been repaired by the nuns after the 1532 fire. This could have contaminated the sample with newer, 16th century material. This theory is known as the invisible reweaving hypothesis. Other theories proposed that bacteria and fungi could have added newer carbon. The intense heat of the 1532 fire might have also altered the cloth's carbon signature. However, many radiocarbon experts maintain the original dating was accurate and robust. The mystery of the image's formation remains a central point of debate. No one has successfully replicated the image with all its unique properties. The image is extremely superficial, affecting only the topmost fibers of the linen. It contains 3D-dimensional information, not typical of a simple photograph or painting. A VP8 image analyzer revealed this property in the 1970s. Paintings or simple scorches do not produce this kind of 3D data. The image is also perfectly detailed, showing features like scourge marks and a crown of thorns. Some studies suggest the blood was applied to the cloth before the image was formed. Analysis of pollen grains found on the Shroud has added another layer of mystery. Some pollen was identified as coming from plants native only to the Jerusalem area. This suggests the cloth was, at some point, in the Middle East. However, the science of pollen analysis is often debated and subject to contamination. The textile itself, a 3-1 herringbone twill, is also a point of contention. Some experts claim this weave was rare, but known in the 1st century. Others argue it was more common in the medieval period. Recent studies continue to offer conflicting results. A 2022 study using X-ray scattering suggested the linen was much older than the carbon date. It proposed a natural aging process consistent with a 2,000-year-old fabric. Conversely, other recent studies have proposed forgery methods. One theory suggests the image was created using a heated bas-relief sculpture. This could potentially explain the 3D information encoded in the image. The Catholic Church itself has never officially declared the Shroud to be authentic. It is officially referred to as a powerful icon, an object of veneration. This allows for personal belief without mandating it as an article of faith. The Shroud forces a confrontation between 2 ways of knowing, faith and empirical science. For believers, the image is a perfect illustration of the passion narratives in the Gospels. The wounds correspond precisely to the biblical accounts of Jesus' suffering. They see its inexplicable nature as evidence of a miraculous event, the resurrection. For them, no medieval forger could possess such anatomical and theological knowledge. For skeptics, The radiocarbon date is the single most important piece of evidence. They argue that all other evidence is circumstantial or misinterpreted. The lack of any historical record before 1354 remains a significant hurdle for authenticity. They believe the image formation, while mysterious, will one day be explained by natural means. The Shroud of Turin is publicly displayed only on rare occasions. These exhibitions, or ostensions, draw millions of visitors to Turin. It remains a powerful symbol, regardless of one's personal belief. It reflects humanity's enduring search for meaning and connection to the divine. It is a mirror reflecting our own perspectives on faith, science, and the unknown. Could it be an elaborate artistic creation? The masterpiece of a forgotten genius? Or is it a genuine artifact, bearing the marks of an event that changed the course of history? The image on the cloth is both a frontal and dorsal view of the man. The figure is naked, with hands crossed over the pelvis. The man depicted was muscular and approximately 5 feet 10 inches tall. There are marks consistent with Roman flagellation across the back and legs. Puncture wounds are visible on the scalp, consistent with a cap-like crown of thorns. A large wound is apparent in the man's side, as if from a spear. The nail wounds appear to be in the wrists, not the palms. This is anatomically correct for crucifixion, a detail a medieval forger might not know. The face is serene, with a beard, mustache, and shoulder-length hair. The eyes are closed, as if in death. There's no sign of decomposition on the cloth, suggesting the body was not in it for long. This aligns with the gospel accounts of a resurrection after 3 days. The image is also dimensionally stable, with no distortion from draping the cloth. This has led some to propose the image was formed by a burst of radiation. This flash of light theory is popular among those who believe in a supernatural origin. It attempts to provide a scientific sounding mechanism for a miracle. However, there is no independent evidence for such an event. The shroud's image is a perfect negative, but the bloodstains are not. The blood behaves like normal pigment, appearing positive in a negative photo. This suggests 2 different processes were responsible for the image and the stains. The blood type has been conclusively identified as ABB. This blood type is rare in Europe but more common in the Middle East. The shroud has been damaged by more than just the 1532 fire. Centuries of being folded and handled have left their own marks. In 2002, the shroud underwent a major restoration. The patches from 1534 were removed to relieve tension on the original cloth. The old backing cloth was also replaced with a new, lighter one. This restoration was controversial, with some scientists arguing it destroyed potential evidence. They feared it would prevent future analysis of the backing cloth and patches. Ultimately, the Shroud of Turin remains an object of profound mystery. It is a historical puzzle, a scientific challenge, and a powerful spiritual symbol. No single theory has been able to account for all of its unique characteristics. The debate will likely continue for many years to come. Each new study seems to add more questions rather than definitive answers. Whether relic or artwork, its power to fascinate and inspire is undeniable.